We seem to be making our way back through a residential area of Nuuk. Have to admit and point out this particular house, which has basically its entire wall facing north, and as a result, entirely glass. That way it gets all the solar exposure it can. Though on a day like this, it's just, well, nice view of the harbor anyway. But at least on a sunny day, it's got to be really pleasant, to be honest. How many sunny days you get here? No idea. Because we're not having one now. What? I need to correct myself for the record based on Daniel's reminder. I said northern exposure, didn't I? Because we used to watch that show all the time. That happens to be a play on southern exposure, which that particular house had, and which you'll see real estate listings in our area that extol that sort of thing. You get to see the sun from the entire arc, especially up here when you're this far north. But yeah, I misspoke. You all know what I meant, and that's what matters. I have to admit that there's a lot of times on this trip I've had to defer to Daniel and go, well, he was right about this and I wasn't. But this time around, we seem to have both managed to get a little bit misplaced. I refuse to say lost. Nuuk is too small to get lost in, I want to say. Although the hilly nature of the place, there are these moments where you're on the wrong side of a hill or a mountain and you'd be hard-pressed to find your way back necessarily. It does take some getting used to, and I imagine I'm not going to between now and when we have to go. Indeed, we've made our way further afield. Our guide had pointed out earlier the high school and the teacher's college, what you guys would have referred to as a normal school in Western or at ISU for that matter. But we're definitely further inland and away from the harbor or the cruise terminal than we ever got on the shuttle bus that took us out here. And speaking of shuttle buses, yes, I think we're going to be doing basically what we did in Reykjavik, making our way back on foot. The bad news is that our hike is being done without a map, and some of the dirt roads here are muddy, let's face it. So we don't know where we're going, and it's not a pleasant slog necessarily. On the other hand, it seems that the rain has let up, even if the clouds haven't. And for that matter, it seems like we're back on our way, and we've found the shopping mall, which is probably now open if we want to check it out. Yes, actually, we're back at the statue of Kaassassuk, the heroes of ancient Greenland, who apparently was, as a child, bullied for being small and having this flat nose. The old igloos that they used to use would have a large step, and the elders of the tribe would grab him by his nostrils in order to pull him in, which he didn't appreciate. And he called upon a spirit to guide him and make him strong, supposedly. And when it arrived, it showed up in all of its fearsome glory in order to frighten him into reconsidering asking for a boon. To which point he simply responded with a, look, I've been bullied by the entire village all my life, you don't scare me. And so, with that being said, the spirit offered him all the strength in the world, and he went and basically beat up the entire town. And with all that, he just realized, wait, that feels hollow and empty. And it wasn't until the town was threatened by an iceberg and 2 polar bears, which he proceeded to chop up into ice cubes and bear meat and become a hero, that he realized, you know, there's more to just strength than strength. You have to use it for good. As Daniel says, so this is the wood field of the country. I like that. It's kind of funny because just yesterday I was chatting with a fellow on our cruise from Edmonton. What he must think of this place, I have no idea. Still, for a town of 20,000, it's rather remarkable. Although again, given that this is the one such place in the entire country, there's something to be said for, got to be here somewhere. I'll admit that it's nice and spread out. Land they have plenty of here in Greenland, unlike in the Faroes. It compares favorably to the mall we were at in Thorshavn. Even the number of stores you get a reasonable selection. Daniel comments that it's rare to find a mall that has a full-on grocery store in it. And we do have Mitsu at home, but that's more like a grocery store that has a small mall attached to it, especially the food court. Here, there's only like 2 or 3 cafes and mostly shops in that triangular center of the place. But this Fezzik is really actually large compared to the mall proper. It's still like you look at the prices and go, okay, how is that divided by 6.7? It's not like we have any needs for anything here. But it is interesting to look around and see just how big it is and how much selection they've got for, again, a town of 20,000. Well, that was a bit of an adventure. Nothing really worth buying. We did spot one restaurant that looked interesting to Daniel, but honestly, when it talks about Italian sandwiches and barbecue, I'm like, no offense to Greenlanders, but I'm pretty sure we do it better, or at least comparably well. So we can wait until we get home for something like that, I think. In the meantime, we're going to be finding our way back to the terminal. Hopefully. Again, without a map, it might be a little tricky, but it is a small town, so we'll see where we can get. Unfortunately, the weather is such that it's still unpleasant. It's gotten back to raining now that we're outside of the mall, which is a bit of a shame, but what are you going to do? Meanwhile, we'd also been heading in the wrong direction, and it wasn't until we checked ourselves, looked around, and realized we were going the opposite direction of the cultural center that we concluded, okay, we've got to double back and see if we can't find our way from here. However, in retracing what we think are the steps that we took on the bus, we found the Parliament building, and more important for us, since we're just that kind of folks, the Brugseni, which is the same grocery store that we saw in Kaassassuk, only a lot larger. The Brugseni is about the size of a city block, as far as I can tell. But what really gets Daniel's attention are these stairs that are outside and only go down about halfway. They seem to stop at about my head height. It's very strange. But as you can see, here's the storage area, and then there's an additional spot over here. I don't know if it's an entire store or if this is just warehouse portion, but we're gonna check them both out quickly. The blue box portion is basically entirely grocery, and it really does seem like about the same size as the Greenland Tesco, with ironically enough, their frozen section is much larger, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, one would think that you could just put it outside and you have your own frozen section just from being green. They also have one of these escalating walkways, which I suppose are for the shopping trolleys. And one other thing I've noticed about this place is that they really love their new flag. It's only a little older than myself, and yet they hang it everywhere. Haven't seen anybody this patriotic in Europe, that's for sure. But here, national pride is a big thing, despite the fact that they aren't even a nation yet. Oh, and here we have a connecting walkway and a cafe right next door to it, where the diners can basically eat while looking over downtown Nuuk, though you can't see it through the windows there. And it would seem that this side is a bit more of the department store, although it's much quieter here, since you need to get staples and eat on a regular basis, whereas some of these things are permanent goods. So you buy them once and you're set for a year or two or however many. So it's not quite as crowded. There was a revolving door behind us when we walked in, but it seems to have been opened up since then. Anyway, we have to take this path underneath the cafe because the department store section doesn't seem to go downstairs again. Ah, and this seems to be the electronics and appliance department. Though why it's not connected, I have no idea. Well, at least we've seen our way around. And again, in a certain respect, it's not unlike wandering around a Walmart back at home. Much of the stuff is priced very similarly to everything else in Europe, which is to say expensive. And for most of what's in there, we could get it for less. I'm not really finding stuff that I see as exotic at this point, so we're leaving it go and trying to make our way back to the terminal, although without a map, I'm a little confused about that. Still, we're headed uphill. At some point, we should be able to see into the fjord and spot our ship from there. And from there, it should be an easy trip. Bearing in mind that Nuuk is 1/10 the size of Reykjavik, and the fact that we're seeing and hearing an awful lot of traffic as we go, we're thinking that a lot of this has to do with people coming in and going from the ship. So we're thinking we're on the right track, especially since we're seeing certain places like the bank behind us that we saw on our way out. I won't go so far as to claim that we're lost. We just haven't been found yet. I do think that we're on our way because I'm seeing a crane behind me, and that would be near the port. There are a lot of little, I say little, these are stores, and large ones for a town of 20,000 people. So I think we're getting in towards the touristy area, which is another indication that we're definitely on our way where we want to go. Also comment on the unique zoning that they have here in Nuuk. They basically have the cemetery right here. And again, I think this is getting closer to the port, but also behind that, I think these are brand new apartment complexes, some of which that they're in the process of building. So they're starting to grow here, even as they're growing around where they've placed some of their ancestors. And I say ancestors, mind you, we're not talking about ancestral worship or anything like that. Greenland is 95–97% Christian, although basically every birth is registered as Christian. And it is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, which has a state church just like so many places in Europe. So you take the designation with a grain of salt, but at least they have a starting point. Well, the bad news is we still don't really have a good idea of where we are. The good news is we're making our way downhill, and we are seeing fjord in front of us. I'll just show you if you can. And so while we don't see the ship just yet, I think we're headed in that direction. Interestingly enough, I think we're covering more of Nuuk on foot by ourselves than with our guide. So, although, again, our traveling is going to be completely without context and just seeing a whole bunch of buildings and just walking through a few of them and just walking by most of them. Although some of the buildings are just built on huge amounts of rock here, and you can still see the glacial scrapings that I mentioned on That Hill. All right, I think you can see it from here. The funnel showing the Great Crown and Anchor. We are on our way home, and hardly a minute too soon because I honestly don't know when we take off either. Judging from all the traffic that has been passing us as we've made our way down here, you would think that the entire population of Nuuk was coming down here. To be fair, we're talking about taxis and buses especially, but also the folks bringing stuff out to sell and the like. This may very well be their last batch of tourists to ply their wares upon before the end of the season. So one can understand the rush and the crush, relatively speaking. But it is kind of wild, considering what you know about the size of this place. It's barely that of Macomb, for crying out loud. It's a little disconcerting to make our way through here because there are no sidewalks to speak of. And the parking lots that we are wandering through are basically gravel and dirt, which are at the moment a little bit on the muddy side. That's just the way it is with the weather we've got. I understand why, because there's no point in paving something that the weather is going to come down in winter and just crack up. You might as well just use gravel and be done with it. But it makes for sloppy walking in this weather. It doesn't help that being near to the harbor, and one of their major industries here is aquaculture. The harbor, unsurprisingly, smells of fish. And very strongly, too. So, it's not entirely pleasant. I understand why Daniel's holding his nose. I know he doesn't like this stuff, but it's kind of potent even to me. You just kind of grin and bear it. Oddly enough, I wasn't smelling it when we got on the ship. And since we're not that far away now, hopefully that won't be such a big deal for long. Looking out over the harbor here, it's really quite amazing as to how many containers there are. You'd think there's one for every inhabitant of Nuuk, but it's obviously a way station between Europe and North America these days, which is really strange because one of the things that was pointed out in the hotel was that for the longest time, even to the middle of the 20th century, Greenland was pretty much off limits to everybody but Denmark, the kingdom that essentially owned it. It was closed off to the world, apart from the Danes and the Norse. It's really kind of strange to think of. I'm used to the idea of a free market economy. To consider a country, even a territory like this, to be off limits to everything but the kingdom that owned it, does strike one as almost wrong. But, you know, American sensibilities and all that. I get it. Well, we've got ourselves some souvenirs anyway, as requested. So we're on our way in and out of the rain, out of the cold, and up to our rooms for the next couple of days, since we'll be at sea for the next couple. Still, Daniel's proud of what he's got here. We got back here after 2 hours of tour and 2 hours of walking back. We're back aboard at a little after 12 and have most of the rest of the day to ourselves. And then the next 2 days at sea. The weather was not particularly pleasant. Even the tour guide admitted it. This is lousy weather even for Nuuk in Greenland. Although, I hate to remind him, it's not going to get that much better from here on out. Still, we're back, we're off our feet, we're relaxing, we're enjoying ourselves, and now we can look forward to taking it easy for another couple of days. So, anyway, take care. Keep an eye on us and wish us luck. We're going to need it.